There's a New York Times best-selling book titled Freakonomics, and I find the book so interesting in the way that it takes readers on this sort of journey into a world of unintended consequences, meaning there's a specific action or decision made with the goal to accomplish one thing, yet a profound impact is made on something entirely different that nobody saw coming. It's in this same spirit of searching for unintended consequences that gave me inspiration to take a look at companies and why they struggle with culture so much, hence the term Culturonomics. Patrick Lencioni, who's a best-selling author, an actual expert in the field of culture, shared in a recent podcast that he believes maybe 15% of companies actually have a healthy culture or great culture. Now, I can assure you, this isn't a situation where the other 85% have made a decision that they don't need to have a great culture. In today's business world, there's almost universal acceptance that a good culture is important and in many cases critical for long-term success. So are companies and their leaders making decisions today based on conventional wisdom that have always made sense, that are somehow impacting their culture in ways they don't fully understand? With so many struggling to get it right, I believe this is exactly what happens. And one of those decisions, I believe, is when a company decides to pay top dollar to find and recruit talent, it will have the unintended consequence of undermining, even destroying their culture in the process. Now, to make sure I wasn't the only one connecting the dots between this impact of top-of-market pay and culture, I reached out to many of my friends and colleagues. And what I discovered was most of them agreed with me. In fact, some of them agreed very strongly with this connection that I was describing. The best example I can give you is one of my closest friends, Max, who's actually owned his own company now for over 10 years. And like any business, it's had its ups and downs, but the one thing he's always taken pride in is the fact that he's offered a good environment with a great culture for his people. Now, they've had some big wins over the last year, and I was aware of that. That's why I reached out to him. And because of that, they've gone through a period now of explosive growth. And one of the decisions that he made was he decided to pay top dollar to find and recruit talent to fill some key positions to prepare for that growth. And it's this decision that has given him more stress and anxiety than he ever anticipated. So much so that he's now reached out to some mentors to try to help coach him through the emotions he finds himself going through. And what he's dealing with right now is a battle in his heart as a leader, dealing with managing the expectations and results he's now demanding from his team now that he's paying so much more money. He finds himself in conversations reestablishing rules and guidelines, things that have been in place for years. Things like those flexible work schedules that maybe have been too flexible all along. Having a conversation or two about personal sacrifice and opportunity. Not as willing to listen to excuses when things are missed or overlooked. And in general, what's happened over the course of a pretty short time is the mood in the office has changed. People don't seem as excited to be there. Things are more tense between he and his employees. Even team members' conversations are a little off. And even though he's in a position now where the company's taken off financially, he notices and feels the culture heading in another direction, and it concerns him. And what he's realized in a short amount of time in the world of bigger stakes, higher expectations, is that payroll changes the conversation. Now, in regards to culture itself, it was Netflix that made the biggest waves in 2011. They made the decision to make what they call their culture deck available online for the world to see. Now, this is a simple PowerPoint presentation if you've seen it, nothing too fancy. With that being said, it's now been viewed online over 14 million times and is now considered legendary. Facebook's chief operating officer, Sheryl Sandberg, even refers to it as potentially the most influential document to ever come out of Silicon Valley. Now, Netflix has had a lot of success, and most of us would agree they're a great company. But I believe that Netflix misses the mark in regards to their stance on pay, and I think they miss badly. To share what their thought is on pay top of market is core to high-performance culture. Now, if we take this literally, then high performance cannot exist without top-of-market pay. And the next 16 slides go on to provide a pretty compelling argument to state this case. Now, Netflix happens to be located in Silicon Valley and also responsible for nearly 1/3 of all web traffic on any given night in the US. And they're competing against the likes of Facebook, Google, Airbnb, some of the biggest and fastest growing companies in the world. That's who they have to compete against to get talent. So if you're in that situation as a company, this stance might work. It might be the only one that does, I don't know. But what I do know is if your company's located in a city like Wilmington, North Carolina, like mine is, it's no longer like generations past where we had to sit back and watch the giants in California or any other major market compete for the highest paid and most talented positions. In today's world, with remote employees and teams distributed globally, any company, including my own, can make the decision to get into a bidding war, to pay whatever they have to recruit the most talented people they possibly can. And I believe that decision actually is not a formula for a vast majority of companies for long-term success. And one of the reasons is because of the impact it will have on culture. And more importantly, there's no convincing evidence why you should even go this route to begin with. Now, what Netflix did was they inspired a generation of companies to not only talk about their culture, but to live it and put it in writing. And my company, inspired by many of the same philosophies that Netflix shared with the world, did exactly that. We took the time to document and put in writing our own form of a culture deck. And going through that exercise, an interesting but clear difference emerged in regards to philosophies on pay. Our stance, top 50%. We aim to pay our team members within the top 50% of comparable positions with other companies. However, we don't pay in the top percentile of comparable positions with other companies. Now, like Netflix, we share this document online for everyone to see. And our entire team is very familiar with our position in our entire culture deck. And we have been fortunate and blessed enough to take thousands of applications each year, and we only get to work with a small percentage of those people. The point is, people are excited and passionate about trying to join our company. And just as importantly, the leaders in our company have found highly skilled, highly talented people for every single department. This notion that top of market pay is somehow required to find top performers simply isn't accurate. Not only do my experience as a leader tell me otherwise, there's some pretty interesting research that suggests trying to impact performance strictly through compensation isn't a good strategy at all. In one of the top 10 most viewed TED Talks of all time, it was Daniel Pink that shared with us, and it's titled The Science of Motivation. And what he shared with us is that there's a mismatch between what science knows and what business does. And he shares with us in that talk, and as well as so many books as he's written, that study after study has proven that paying more money, although it increases motivation, the intensity it does on focus, which limits creativity, and all the stress and the anxiety that comes with that, actually has a negative impact on performance. It sounds like one of those unintended consequences. Conventional wisdom tells us you want to get more, compensate, pay for more performance, but it actually has the opposite effect. Now you add in the variable of high expectations into this mix, and now you've got a formula that starts to erode and destroy company cultures. And let's make no mistake about it. It's the high expectations we're talking about. And more specifically, it's the overly high and sometimes unreasonable expectations that come with those really high salaries that are creating all the problems. Now, companies and leaders need to have high expectations for their people. We all get this. Everyone needs a bar to shoot for. But what happens when they become too high? And I also realize that my argument that top of market pay is destroying cultures simply does not answer all of the things that go into something as complex as culture. But I think we can all understand and appreciate the dynamic that when an owner or a hiring manager makes the decision to pay top of market, we're talking way higher than the market should pay, what they're going to expect from that person when they join the company. They're going to expect more. They're going to expect more performance. I think it feels like common sense, and it's probably totally expected. And that's actually exactly my point. Earlier in my career, I was director of sales for a software company. We had one team member specifically who was paid a much higher salary to join our company. And despite being the top performer in almost every measurable category in his first 2 years, the owners of the company decided to let him go due to his lack of performance. He was never able to live up to the high expectations that came with that salary. And there was constant stress and anxiety on both sides. Owners always feeling as if they didn't get a return on their investment. They could have got a similar performance and paid less to get it. And of course, my team member feeling like his job was constantly on the line. Turns out that it was. As leaders, whether we decide to pay that top dollar or we feel like we're forced to due to circumstances out of our control, it is in our DNA to take it too far in regards to expectations in relation to salaries. Again, payroll changes the conversation. Now, I realize as much as anyone, the task of building or trying to fix or even maintain a company culture is not easy. It takes a lot of hard work, a lot of time, and many people coming together with a shared vision to make that happen. But I believe there are two things that companies need to do immediately if they want to start on that journey to have a great culture and be one of the top 15%. Number one is they need a shift in thinking in regards to employee compensation. Leaders must embrace the concept that culture must be their greatest form of compensation for their people. And what does that mean? It means not only allowing, but encouraging their people to put their families and their lives first, to be better husbands, be better wives, and be better parents, and acknowledge the fact there are more important things in this world than a job. And when they are at work, challenge them, absolutely, but more importantly, believe in them, inspire them, take the time to thank them and show gratitude for the work that they're doing while they're there. These are the things that are core to high performance, not top of market pay. That's why as leaders, we simply cannot afford to allow culture to slide into some world of unintended consequences. We can't be making decisions that are impacting culture in a way that we don't fully understand or recognize. That's why culture must remain at the forefront of all decision-making processes. Anything less isn't good enough. The second thing companies need to do is take the time to define what great culture means and make sure that everyone on their team is on board with that definition. There are too many people that hear these two words together, great and culture, and they start having visions of people bringing puppies to work, playing foosball all day, and having an office party every other Friday. That might be a fun culture. That doesn't make it great, and that's not what we're talking about when we talk about the top 15%. A great culture is a high-performance culture. The difference, people that work at companies that have great cultures perform at extremely high levels because they want to, versus feeling like they have to perform at very high levels because if they don't, they'll get fired. And that makes all the difference in the world and is the best example of the impact overly high expectations have on people in the company and the impact on culture. Companies that do embrace making culture their greatest form of compensation for their people will realize there are a lot of highly skilled, highly talented people out there that will come running and want to join them, and they won't need the biggest paycheck to do it. Do they want to be paid fairly? Absolutely. But more importantly, they want the opportunity to have a purpose, the ability to make an impact, and they want to feel appreciated. Companies that provide this will discover that once those talented people do come on board, they will perform at the highest level they possibly can because they want to be a part of something special. And that is a much better intended consequence to focus on for the future. That's Culturonomics. Thank you.